what's a question that you would ask of this kid? And it's pretty wide open because let's be honest, this is a weird painting. It's a little bit strange. May not be what you're expecting. You know, if you just walk up and say, "We're going to talk about art today."
Is that a vase? Is that like going to help you cook the fish? Like what's going on with that? He's kind of like presenting it.
Do all young fishermen, are you all shirtless? Or is this for did the painter ask you to do this for some reason?
Gotcha. That's a good question because that definitely stands out right away, right? So there are obviously things going on around us right now where you see someone and they're wearing something or not wearing something, and it tends to give a certain thought of what they're about. Awareness, I guess, is a key word. So I'm a little bit of an awareness person currently. Like I have a purple band here because purple is the color of epilepsy, and also I found out it's like the color of like 12 other things. So I don't feel as much of a spokesperson anymore. My shirt is about an epilepsy walk coming up, and because I'm like, okay, I want people to see that, know that that's important. I was given this safety pin recently. I was at a march on Sunday, and someone was like, "Oh, would you like a pin?" First I was like, something coming, is it something coming apart? Why, I was like, oh no, it just means you're a safe person. And, oh, okay, sure. I guess I'll wear that. I don't mind supporting that. Okay. I realize that other people will look at that though and they'll think a certain thing. And so for me, the whole awareness idea, take a look at someone and what pops into my mind. Take a look at someone and what are they trying to convey. And usually we'll have an initial response to how they look, what they're promoting, and I know what they're doing, and here's who they are, and etc. There's a certain awareness that kind of immediately happens in a lot of our minds. So I don't know, if you had to kind of make this a little more right now today, because we kind of identified, this is probably a long time ago, it's an old picture, and it is. Is there any person, just name the name, or maybe a type of person, you can identify as much as you want, to where you say, when I see that, when I'm confronted with that, here's where my mind goes. Here's where my assumption goes.
I don't really see what people are typically like, especially about the look on their face or how their hair looks or what color their shoes are or anything. I don't assume anything about where they are in life. We all have our prejudices. That's the human condition, and I think that maybe if you see someone wearing a certain brand or like if someone gets out of Ferrari, you automatically assume things about their personality. You paid for that Ferrari.
I don't know, just right off the bat, he's like blonde, blue-eyed, white male, so a little privilege, but other than that, you don't really know anything else about him if you're relaying it to like today. Maybe he is a lower class because he's kind of looks dirty, but maybe he was just fishing, so I don't know.
Would you ask any of those questions of him?
No.
Or anything to clarify? Or is that too weird?
No, I don't know. I feel like that's where he's a painting, but I don't know.
How often do any of us in this room walk up to people and say, "Excuse me, I noticed by your facial expression, or I noticed by your clothing that you seem to be distressed. Are you a fisherman?" Or at least that's my take on it. I don't do that.
If I'm seeing him in this picture, or I'm seeing him in real life, and he's wearing a certain hat that has become popular over this election season, depending on how I feel about that hat, there'll be certain things that I will associate to him. I may associate very high and lofty things and very good things based on the hat he's wearing, or I may not based on the hat that he's wearing. I have a friend whose son was going to wear this iconic hat that has become popular recently on the first day of registration at school because he just thought it'd be funny. And so his dad didn't necessarily believe in all the ideals of the hat. He's it'll just be kind of funny. He wants to wear this hat, he's a college freshman. He's a high school freshman. I was like, that may not be the best way to enter in his freshman year if it's just for a joke, because I don't think other people will get that this is a joke. They'll either think that he is really strong supporting, or he's like being really like arrogant, like trying to be, prove some kind of point. I don't know that, because we're going to see something and automatically think something. I don't know that many people would have asked him questions like, "Hey, why are you wearing that hat? Is that because, tell me about that." It's going to be, "Can you believe that?" And we're going to steer clear, or "This jerk," or "I like that guy so much. That's the person I want to be." There's going to be a certain assumption made. Fair or unfair. Awareness. How do you ask questions of people? when it could be an awkward conversation.
If you must ask the questions, and we all know that I'm not an advocate of that, but if you must, I think just honestly ask them, hey, why are you wearing that? If you really care that much, just say it. Excuse me, why are you wearing that hat? I don't want to answer. Okay, that's fine. Or because I like this, or because of a joke, and then thank you very much.
I guess just make it known, like, that you respect them, even though maybe, like, what they're doing doesn't necessarily align with your viewpoints, like the hat, maybe just, listening, which I think that was, if we're talking about the election, I think that was a problem with, like, the Democrats is that, versus the Republicans, is that a lot of them didn't take the time to listen to the concerns of the people who voted for Donald Trump. So they felt like they were forgotten. So I think if you can kind of ask yourself, like, and just make it clear, like, how can I word this where it's, like, very respectful, and it just comes off as curiosity and wanting to understand your situation rather than me thinking these things about you.
Gotcha. Which is hard to do if I feel very strongly
Right.
already before I even ask the question. I already think a certain way, or feel you might think a certain way, and so let me ask you a question. I think that's always interesting. I don't see it as much in person because it's awkward and hard. You see it a lot more on social media, where a lot of responses will start off with a question, but it's usually a question like, tell me how and you can kind of tell the tone of it, even how it's written and the way the wording is, where you're like, this actually isn't a clarifying question. This is actually just a question to kind of put you on the defensive and then me to attack what I think you think, or maybe what you said even. Okay, so starting the question off with some kind of clarifying, as far
That
as
you want to know what their perspective is, and you're not coming from a place of, like, harsh judgment.
can be hard, extremely difficult.
I used to work in social service in Saudi Daisy. And the thing about Saudi Daisy is that their community tends to live and die, and then the next generation lives and dies in Saudi Daisy. So there's a great deal of personal investment. This person knows this person's grandfather, and everybody's so interconnected that however, when you're in the social services realm, your duty is to help whoever comes to the door, regardless of their circumstance. However, with a lot of people, especially people who came from that community, even though they took that same oath, if they knew other people's circumstances or whatever, it tended to affect their degree of want to help, but also it brought in some of their judgment too. Well, I know that he does this and everything. He should be receiving X, Y, and Z. I know that she doesn't work. She spends all day on Facebook. She shouldn't be getting. So it tends to bring in other people's ideas of how you should live and how you should operate. I think that in that aspect, it brings the awareness factor up way more than it necessarily needs to. But I think that also outside of that, we're in the documentation age where everybody's on Instagram and Facebook, especially, grandmothers on Facebook. Grandmothers haven't really switched to Twitter yet, is it? But I think the fact that everybody to a certain degree has access to everybody else and can kind of also form those same types of judgments and thoughts of how other people should think and feel and function on a daily basis. I think that tends to tip the scale too.
There are a lot of circumstances where we're not asking questions, where we could get more. I mean, it's beyond a red hat, it's beyond gossip, but really kind of who are you and what are you afraid of and what are you curious about? And some of those broader questions that have less to do with surface values and more to do with internal, they can tell you a lot more about a person that I think we're not asking him. I mean, that's what I'm curious about is, what do you see as your future and where do you want to be and what are your goals and what are your dreams and, as opposed to are you hungry?
If I wanted to know who is this boy and what is he doing, I mean, I don't know, we could start off with the shallow questions. Why do you have this fish here? Where's your shirt at? Or we could just say, is there anything you want to tell me? Is there anything you need to get off your chest? Sometimes it helps to talk to a stranger. But I don't know if going after them, going after their mind is a good idea. And I don't do that with anyone. So, But that's my perspective, and that's the cool thing about art, is that everyone in here looks at this and sees something different.
The question of what would you want me to know? What do you want to tell me? Now, obviously, that could be a little go nowhere if it's a complete stranger and they're like, oh, I'm good, bro. I don't want to tell you anything. However, someone with the hat, what do you wish people knew? And they may tell you, I want people to know I'm not a racist. I want people to know I want people to know that I truly believe that this will be better for us. I want people to know that's a good one. That's a great question. I like that idea. Usually when I ask a question, maybe it's because I have no clue, or it's because I already have a good idea and I'm coming with a hook. Hey, why did da-da-da-da-da? Because why do you do this? When really, or do you really think that, there's some like hook to that question that may not necessarily, it's either like, I want to show you how smart I am about the topic, or I want to tear you down on it. It'd be interesting to just ask someone, what do you wish people knew? And he might say a number of things. Or that person that we see. Saw that like firsthand 2 summers ago, right after what happened in South Carolina at the church, 9 people mowed down. And so we got together and had people ideally come from kind of different perspectives, different backgrounds, got all together to do some discussions. We had kind of art and music and poetry was part of it, and then the discussion was the big part, but the art and music brought different people in. And so we had 2 people start the conversation up front. So we had a white pastor from the area who's grown up in the South his whole life, and we had a black man about 30 who had grown up in the South all of his life. What was interesting is they lived in the same neighborhood at different times. So the young black man lived in this neighborhood growing up, and then this neighborhood got gentrified to where some people still lived in the neighborhood, but he didn't live in the neighborhood anymore. And so this white pastor now lives in that area. So that was a unique connection we didn't even know to start with. And basically had a chance to say, here's what I wish people knew. And so the one thing, and this was great, we said, look, be very honest, hear each other out. That's this kind of, and just kind of set the tone for us. Fascinating. So the white pastor could say, look, here's what I wish you knew. What I wish people knew is like, I'm tired of feeling like I'm being blamed for things I've never done. I feel like I get blamed for stuff that I have no power over and had no power over. It's just frustrating. And the black guy was able to say, yeah, okay, that makes sense. I wouldn't want that either. And he's like, here's what I wish you knew, is that when you see things happen big right now, a shooting here, an injustice that looks like a blip on the radar to you, and you're kind of like, well, yeah, but maybe, or these things have been happening in my neighborhoods and with my family month after month. It happens multiple times in a year. These aren't just like these one things. So I wish you understood that when I tell you this happens in my life, that you would believe me. That was pretty good. That was both very, very upfront, very honest about it. It wasn't attacking. Why don't you get it? How dumb can you be that you don't understand this? Just kind of saying like, look, here's what I wish you knew. So I'm glad you said that, because that reminded me of that real life example. I was like, man, I want to be more like that, just to say.
You can't be truly aware of someone if you give them a bracket to fill in. It's not about the questions we want answered, it's about the questions he wants to answer, because the questions he wants to answer are going to say so much more about him than what we want. We are trying to build, we have this preconceived notion of who he is. Why are you shirtless? Why is the fish? Why is this bottle here? Why do you look saddish? But if we say, hey, you got anything you want to say? Then all we know about him is things that he said, not things that we've tried to get him to validate.